Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and today we are talking about DIY furniture, upcycling, redoing, refinishing, whatever you want to call it. This is something that I had been looking forward to doing since we knew that we were finally getting into the house and I was going to be able to look back through all of the furniture that I had from our previous home, my previous taste and style, and really bringing it into kind of what I like now and what I wanted our home to look like. If that is something that is interesting to you, please go ahead and give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get going. So this was inspired by a Kristen McGowan video. She is a fantastic creator, designer. I mean, everything she does here on YouTube is beautiful. So I will link that video in the description box down below so you can watch hers as well. She did this on a Calyx unit. And again, I thought what she created was very beautiful. So I took that and wanted to kind of mirror that here. She did a fantastic job again, so go ahead and watch hers. But let's take a look here. So I know I've mentioned before that I had a lot of furniture in storage and very different taste, very different palette before. So when we did get everything back, you can see here just in our garage how much I had put out there because I either wanted to refinish it or maybe some of these things have already been donated or sold on Facebook Marketplace, something like that. There was just a lot out there that doesn't really read how I want my home to feel now. I have a lot of dark furniture. You can see just how dark everything really was. In this deeper kind of almost espresso brown, but not even quite that deep and dark. It's a dark wood brown basically. So this is the furniture piece in particular. It was the bottom half of the hutch. I'll put up a picture here about how it was styled in our old dining room. And there was a lot of glass, a lot of dark brown, and it had this silver hardware and just not quite the look I was going for anymore. So I wanted to use the bottom of the hutch to redo into a sideboard for the living room. This is where I want the box to the TV to hide, and it gives another space for kind of decorating. It gives a nice mantle essentially to have a painting or something on top. So it just gives a little bit more presence to the room, and that's really the direction I wanted to take the bottom half of this hutch. But I also really wanted to make sure that while a lot of the furniture that I had before isn't my style anymore, a lot of it is still really good quality. It's heavy, it has lasting power, so it's not like it's something that's cheap and is going to fall apart. So I really wanted to utilize what I did have and what I could kind of play with a little bit, see if I could get a little creative to make it fit my current style. My initial thought was to just strip and stain the wood. So the first thing I did was strip the stain on the top to see what we were working with, and I started doing that on the drawers as well before taking a different direction. But I do want to talk about stripping the old finish off the furniture because I definitely made a couple mistakes, learned along the way, and if you are doing this yourself, I do want to make sure that you are doing this in the safest way possible. So while I didn't fully commit to this direction, I do want to make sure that if you're doing this, safety first. So you will need metal buckets. I had a basic metal bucket here, and I'll have everything that I did use here linked down below. So again, if you are doing this yourself, you know the same materials that I use. I had a chip brush. I used the Clean Strip Premium Stripper, so there are a lot of different options here. I do like how this one performed. It smells awful. You definitely want to have some type of mask ventilation so that you're not breathing this in. I've heard great things about the orange stripper stuff. I don't know what that's called. I'll put a picture, I'll link it that below as well. Again, I didn't use that here. I don't have personal experience with it, but heard fantastic things, and apparently it doesn't smell quite so toxic. So something to keep in mind if that is something that I believe is technically considered safe to use indoors. I probably still wouldn't use it like that. I'd want a lot of open air, open ventilation. Different options here for you. I also bought the Clean Strip After Wash. So this is what you use to clean up with the finishing stripping pads to scrub. You do want a plastic scraper to use, so you don't want to gouge anything into the wood, so I wouldn't use metal. And then again, a metal container for that sludge that comes off. So after you put the stripper on the wood, you want a nice thick coat. Left this on for 15 minutes, which was the instructions for this one, so just keep in mind that might change depending on what you're using. But when you do scrape all that sludge off, deposit it in a metal container. I did not do that at first. I used plastic, and it will eat through plastic. It will melt it, it will eat right through it. and I had a very panicky situation on my hands. So read all of the instructions, again, watch videos here on YouTube, listen to the experts, read all the directions a second, third, fourth time so that you know that you are being safe. Please and thank you. My safety goggles here to make sure nothing splashed into my eyes. I did end up getting these chemical resistant gloves and this really big heavy duty, for me, again, all things are relative. I'm not really much of a DIYer. I'm very much just a lady on YouTube who decided she wanted to do some things to her home. I am no expert, so please make sure that you are referring to people who really know what they're doing. I'll link another video here on YouTube that I watched for stripping furniture. Again, I wanna make sure that you are safe if you're doing this. So the first step is I did take out all of the drawers and all of the doors, removed all of the hardware off of them, gave everything a good clean, and then it was ready to get started. After I got started and I had stripped the top of the sideboard and the drawers, I believe I did all of the drawers. I may have just done one, I don't quite remember. I realized that I wanted to go in a different direction and I actually wanted this sideboard to be black to kind of go off of everything else in the family room. So my family room right now, we have an ivory sofa, we have a very light wood coffee table, we have light browns, so everything was already very light. The rug was a light cream and gray. So I realized that I really wanted something with a little bit more presence, a little bit more depth. So I kind of did a 180 here and decided that I was instead going to paint it, and I wanted to paint it black. I did go ahead and move forward with sanding everything. Now, I don't believe you actually have to sand everything. You can probably just use primer that's going to really help that paint grip. So what I wanted to do was have everything stripped down, get to a more natural wood, and have these half-round dowels to create almost a fluted appearance along the face and sides of this sideboard to give a little bit more interest to the wood piece itself. Now, that was my initial plan. Things changed along the way, and I think that you do want to be open to kind of the realities that come through. So again, that was my initial kind of hope and dream, and we'll see what happened. It did change a little bit. I think it turned out fantastic, but just keep in mind, you may need to be a little bit flexible and adjust your expectations as you go, or at least that's what I had to do. So when I started measuring out all of these half-round dowels, all I had was the miter box and hand saw, and that is perfectly fine. You can absolutely get this entire project accomplished with that, but it was awful. It was so much work trying to keep the dowel pinched as I'm sawing, and there were so many to go. It was a lot of sawing, and I was not a fan of that. It was just slow going, and it's not what I wanted to keep doing for the entire project. So I did end up purchasing this portable table saw, which I was very happy with. It was $126, $129, something like that. And I'll link it below if it's something that you're interested in, but this made for such easy work with these dowels. I measured each one out individually instead of doing them all at one time along the entire length of that dowel, because the saw does have a little bit of width to it. So when you do saw through that piece, part of it does come off, and then you would just kind of be shorter and shorter as you went. So I would saw a piece, remeasure, saw that next piece, and continued on through the entire process. After that, I made sure to sand down all of the edges. They do come off a little rough in some pieces, and you do want to make sure that nothing's gonna poke or stab at you. Also sanding down the edges of some of them, because some of the pieces are just a little more rough than others, some are in a little bit worse shape. So just making sure you have a smooth piece to work off of at each individual dowel. After that, lining them all up to make sure that they were just about even. They're not perfect. I am, again, no expert at this, but it was close enough, and I was pretty happy with how that was all looking. So after that, it was time to get them all nailed down. Now again, the glass was just not really something that I liked. It's not really my style. I feel like it gets streaky, it gets fingerprinty, you can see all of the dust, so glass is just not really for me for the most part. So using these 1-inch brad nails, went ahead and nailed those at the top and bottom of each piece. Once those were all on, you can see here what that looks like. that kind of semi-finished product of that door. I thought it was looking so good and I was very happy with how this was looking. Now these pieces aren't exactly completely straight, so you do have a little bit of spacing here. So I got just some basic caulk and sealed up any of those gaps, and then used the wood filler to fill in all of the tops of the nail holes to make sure that there was going to be a smooth finish. Once that was all dry, sanding that down so again we have a nice smooth base to work off of, and then drill the holes for the hardware. Now I went with a brass hardware here, some knobs for the drawers and some pulls for the doors. And as I was going through this, I had to go back to Home Depot several times because I kept not getting enough dowels to cover everything. So after my third visit, I finally decided that I did not want to do the dowels for the sides. They were even longer, and to be completely honest, first of all, this project was adding up quite a bit. I don't think I took into account how much of that I was going to need and how time consuming that was going to be. So for the sides, I decided to just get some basic thin wooden boards, cut those down to size, and just have the sides be a solid piece of wood. Again, getting rid of or covering up that glass piece, but not going through the process of the dowels because honestly, I was pretty over it at that point. So I did not get any footage of the actual painting process, but I did want to go over everything I used there. So I just got a quart of the Behr Marquee paint. This is in matte, and this is Limousine Leather. If we can make sure we see all of that. Now I still do have some left in here. Not only did I paint 2 coats on everything in the sideboard, I also had a project with my dining chairs. I painted 8 chairs plus 2 other chairs, just the legs. So I got a good bit out of this quart, and again, there's still some left in here. And then I just bought this little paint tray with a roller, these high density foam rollers. This is what I used for all of the painting, and then also for the polyurethane top coats for everything. And that I used the triple thick. I didn't bring those in, but I'll make sure that that is, I'll put a picture up, I'll link that and everything. But just to make sure that that paint is protected, it's not a high traffic area. I'm probably not going to be touching it a lot, but I do want to make sure that all of this time and effort and money that I put in, that it does hold up. Now, after everything was painted, I went ahead and attached the hardware. Over here, you can see that the drawers were already put in, again, with those kind of antiqued brass knobs. The box for the TV already set up through the hole in the back. And then putting the doors on, I think this turned out really well. I was very, very happy with it. I did want some larger pulls initially. I only found one in the size that I wanted, so we went with the size that I could find essentially. I think it turned out well. Maybe not exactly what I was envisioning at the start of the project, but I'm very happy with it. And this lamp over on this side is from my first DIY video. This was one that I had thrifted. I actually had 2 that I ended up doing a little bit of a DIY project with those. So I'll be sure to link that video for you up here as well. But there you have it. That is the sideboard that I redid out of the bottom piece of an old hutch that I had to, again, bring it a little bit more into my current decor style. Had to switch some things up along the way. And while I am very happy with it, I also just want you to be aware that if you are going to be doing something like this yourself, one, it was more expensive than I thought it was going to be. The dowels got pretty expensive because of how many I needed to have. The hardware wasn't too bad and the side pieces of wood wasn't bad, but it just all added up much more. Now I did end up buying some tools, not only for this, but for some other projects. So I'm not necessarily going to count that, but I did end up buying, that portable table saw. I ended up buying a sander, the nail gun. So all of that can also contribute to that price going up. And then also it was just very time consuming. So this was over the course of a couple of weeks. Now, obviously, if I had really dedicated all of my time to it, it could have been knocked out sooner, but I just want to make sure that you go into it with a little bit better understanding than maybe I did with how much time it was really going to take. Now, granted, I started off with trying to strip off all of the old finish, which I didn't need to do because I ended up painting it, and I did have to wait for some of the tools to come in. So there was some of that waiting period that I could have knocked out if I had known what I was getting into from the start. If you are doing something like this, be aware that it might take longer than you were expecting and it might cost a little bit more. So I didn't price everything out beforehand, and I don't honestly know how much it all cost in the end. but I did have a lot of fun doing this. Next, I'm going to be doing our dressers. I again finished some of the dining chairs, so I'll be sure to show those to you as well. But I also want to make sure that I'm not wasting a lot of furniture and purchasing new furniture when I do have some of the ability to refinish what I already have. So I hope that you found this helpful. And if you do have any questions, I'm sure I missed something or left something out, be sure to leave that in the comments below so I can get those answered for you. There will be some more furniture refinishing videos coming your way soon, so if that does sound like something you'd be interested in seeing, be sure to stick around and hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until next time, bye.